Hi there, it's Dr. JOYLYN Sparkles and welcome to your Power Hour. This is your time to put what's on your mind on my mind, and we'll put our heads and hearts together and come up with a way to go from stuck to happy as fuck in a short amount of time as possible. So, today, it's been coming up a lot. I see it a lot in a lot of my Facebook feed, and I know a lot of you in this group are very sensitive individuals and perhaps even identifying as empath. And so if that is the case, and it probably is for a lot, at some point in your life, probably more than once, you've dealt with the dynamic of the narcissist empath. And with this, so much of how it's framed and addressed comes up most often in partnerships, relationships, romance. And that does happen frequently, commonly. I know myself, I wrote about it in my book, Goddess's Guide to Breakups. I had my own entangled dance while I was in medical school, and we broke up and got back together 5 times over 2.5 years. So I know the dance. But now, having had a short course in the last 6 months of relationship after relationship breaking down and seeing that this was an element within the relationship, seeing how much actually is in relationships that are friendships, business relationships, and families. Because indeed, a big reason why we get into those romantic, intimate relationships is because we're trying to fix or correct or understand subconsciously, not knowing we're doing this, a broken parental relationship. So a lot of us have some sort of level of this dynamic that we grew up with. So it's what we know, so it's what we've been attracted to, and keep repeating it until we become aware of what it is and break this. Now with this, I want to say that empath narcissists are roles. And this is a dance more than it is a delineated diagnosis or description. There are individuals who classify and would be diagnosable as far as actually getting pleasure from someone else's pain and perhaps even more consciously manipulating and coercing and controlling, gaslighting. However, for most of us, it's unconscious, subconscious, and we actually do both, because what it is a heightened sensitivity and awareness of energy and power dynamics, and it's also how we relate and operate and function in regards to a deep wounding. So depending on where we're functioning from, even us kind-hearted and caring empaths will be the narcissist in relationships. So it's time to start obliterating the diagnosis and making it a black and white, right and wrong thing. It's a dance and their roles, and it really is coming from what is the wound, how deep is it, and are you functioning from there? Because then it's just a call for self-love and healing, and that's how we actually break this pattern and get out of this. Even though it's a dance, it isn't a beautiful dance. There can be pretty moments in there that are really intense and oh my god, we feel like on top of the world and this is it, and then the crash. So getting out of that intense high-low bipolarity, okay, because it is crazy making. It is not peace, it is not calm, and it is not happy. And our salvation will never come from changing, fixing, healing the other person. It's ourselves that's actually asking for this. To have a need met that wasn't met early on, maybe even from a past lifetime, whatever, that's not important. It's actually just that when it comes up, let's address it. Okay, that's the fastest way. So I just wanted to put that out there, that narcissist empaths roles, it's a spectrum. It's not just a black and white thing. Most of us are actually operating on both and doing both until we actually heal and step out of it. And a lot of it is actually happening within families and in dynamics that maybe are even harder to leave than just a romantic partnership where you can break up and move out of state. Okay? So So let's just know that, all right? And it is complicated because there is a lot of early childhood dynamics and chemistry and family wound up in this. It is not the easiest to break. There will be a lot of abuse, subconscious patterning, and just enmeshment that really keep us in there. So have grace with yourself, even with those that you're playing this out with, because it's actually not benefiting anybody. But if you've got the awareness that you want something else and you're raising your consciousness level to where you're actually gaining the power to be the one to break it, do it. Don't wait for somebody else to give you permission, and don't wait for somebody else to make the first move, and don't do it if you do it, and I'll do it if you do it. That's bullshit, and it will keep you stuck, all right? So where we tend to get stuck as the sensitive one in it. So here's where they're coming from wounding. Empath and narcissist both have wounding. I actually find that they're more trauma patterning than they are really any type of superpowers. What happens is the narcissist tends to use their level of conscious awareness and energetic dynamics and relationship dynamics in order for their own gain. And they try to establish a sense of safety by controlling others and making sure others behave in the way that they want to. And they will do that by coercion and force if necessary. Sometimes conscious, most of the time unconsciously. Okay? The empath, on the other hand, is trying to get their safety from having someone else validate them, agree with them, and accept them. That is how we get stuck. Because the narcissist has no interest in anyone else's point of view, only their own. The empath has almost zero interest in their own point of view except to defend it. But it's never we as empaths, as sensitive people, who from birth and coming into a dysfunctional family relationship knew that our survival depended on other people, have never then grown into or taken on the responsibility of ourselves as a validating entity. Meaning, here's my point of view, here's what I like and don't like, here's what I will tolerate, not tolerate, because I said so, and that's good enough. We keep looking for permission and looking for someone else to say, yes, I agree with you, that's okay, that makes sense. But it's never going to make sense because it's nonlinear, it's human, it's mixed with emotions, and it's got stuff from past lifetimes in there even. So much stuff that we're not even aware of is getting mixed into this, it's not going to make sense. So our addiction to understanding and wanting it to make sense is where we get stuck. The sooner that we can untangle and get out of that, the faster this will start to move and clear out of our lives and our fields. The other thing with this is in needing somebody else to validate us, looking outside of ourselves for permission or agreement or whatever it is, the thing that says, yeah, you're welcome here, that it has to come from outside. Yeah, it's okay if you're here. Yeah, it's okay if you exist. Looking for that to come outside and establishing our safety that way. It is stressful. It is a survival pattern that we got early on. But what we tend to do then is personalize other people's behavior and make it about us. And because we haven't been a validating entity, because we are depending on somebody else for our survival and it's okay for us to be there, that's the insecurity that tends to get emboldened, solidified. So we look at other people's and say, oh, that's evidence that I'm worthless, that I shouldn't be here, that I'm doing something wrong, that my feelings are too much, that I shouldn't have these feelings. That's where we get stuck and we disempower ourselves because we're looking at other people's behaviors as a reflection of us. And again, never ever the case. Everybody is playing out their own trauma patterning, and because we are all conscious and all divine in weird, warped ways that we can't comprehend because we can only see and operate on a snippet of what's actually available, we're all actually moving towards healing. It's just, it's not a linear path. And it's easy to judge from the outside what we think we or someone else should be doing in order to heal, but we don't know the lessons that we contracted or came in to learn, and we don't know what the dynamic is that finally gets us to that point where we decide, yeah, I want something else. And you will stay stuck as long as someone else is the main character of your life and the focal point of your life. You will feel powerless because you're actually trying to control something or change something that's not under your power or control to change, which is another human being, because we are free, sovereign, autonomous beings. So the more that we work on reclaiming our own power, getting interested in our own lives, start to practice being the validating entity of our lives, and actually start practicing and being curious about our lives and our feelings. And instead of being dragged around and ruled by them, we actually start to get curious about them and what's the message they have, and aren't they beautiful, and wow, I have so many at one time. In knowing, validating, self-assuring yourself. It's okay that I have all these feelings. There's nothing wrong with any of them. But none of them are facts, and none of them are forever, and I can start to know that too. That's what the emotional handling that we talked about the last couple of weeks, that's what it allows us to get to this point, to where then we're not ruled by them, and we all know that they're all okay, they're not going to take over our life, we're the one having them, so that they're not such a big deal, so that nobody else can then start to hurt us by judging and controlling our feelings. Because we know we can have any of them, we can change them. It's our thoughts that are creating them and keeping them in place. So if we change our thoughts, we can change that. We change our thoughts with our words. We're learning all these different tools. Look at how much power you have to actually go forward in your life. And then what I talk about like 3-4 weeks ago, the power of questions. And when we start asking empowering questions instead of broken questions, like what's wrong with me? What am I missing? How come this person isn't getting it? Like when we stop asking those questions and just be like, what lights me up? Well, how do I actually want to show up? What is this feeling actually trying to tell me? What's hurting so bad? When we start to ask questions that are actually going to give us useful information, our process moves so much faster. And then we become more empowered. Our self-esteem goes up. Our confidence goes up. We are less able to knock off balance, off center, and be manipulated and held down. So it's never about changing the other person. It's about building ourselves up again. And we build from this core of knowing who we are really, which is divine. And we start tapping into that, getting curious about this human experience and stop judging it. Wow, all of a sudden, we become unfuckwithable. It's freaking amazing. And then you can have a relationship with a narcissist and not be at the effect of it. Now, let me see. I've got to get back to my... Now, how do I know this? I do want to tell a story. This short course has been relationship after relationship falling apart. And then this last trip, you might have seen my background's been changing. I went to my childhood home and I saw, it's like I stepped out of the matrix and I saw the numbers on the wall and I saw the dynamic that I grew up in and how much gaslighting there was and how much withholding of love, because that's what I wanted so bad. I wanted love. I wanted caring. I wanted a compliment. I actually asked for a compliment on my birthday and my mother said no. She didn't outrightly say no because nobody would ever actually say that. She said, well, I'll think about that today. Like it takes a long time. I'm not a bad person and it's your kid. You think you could just, whatever. So I pushed and I pushed and it didn't come ever. And it's because with that dynamic of the power dynamic, and again, because she's not a narcissist all the time, but in that way she was, she saw what I needed, withheld it because then she had the power. Until I got curious about why do I want this so bad? What hurts so bad? And then seeing that it's actually just an attempt to maintain power, because here's what's happening really. You are a bright shining light. And a narcissist can see that, and what is so absolutely devastatingly heartbreaking, and this might give you compassion, they think they can't have it. They think they're not it. They think the only way that they can be it is to take yours or push it down. It is so sad. And it's only coming from whatever background they have. Now, the thing that we have to do as caring empaths is if they're not asking for healing, if they're not ready, if they're not curious or looking to self-reflect, you can't do anything. And if you try, they will hate you more. Because everybody is doing their best, and the faster that we get to that point and actually believe it, the easier life will be. You're doing your best. Yes, you will notice there were times I wish I would have done better. But in that moment, in the consciousness that you were operating on, it was your best. Just trust that. You're going to know when you're bullshitting yourself and making excuses. You're just going to know, because you're going to start to get what the truth feels like and what lies feel like. But if you start operating from everybody else is doing their best instead of being disappointing, you're going to find you're a lot less irritated and your day-to-day is actually going to flow easier. If you actually start operating from people are doing their best, you will start to see that the reason they might not be delivering what you're wanting is because your communication is unclear, or they're operating from a misunderstanding. This happened one time. I was a volleyball coach and I set up this drill and I explained it, and all of a sudden I'm looking and I'm like, what the hell are these girls doing? This is not what I had in my head. But then I looked at the directions I gave and it was actually matching it. We just had different versions of what it looked like. So start to clarify your communication instead of leaving everything up to somebody else and putting yourself in the victim spot. Because victim actually is also another dynamic where that's where you become the narcissist, but it's very covert and subtle because you look like the poor little put upon one. But it's really a powerful dynamic because everybody else has to change and you don't, because it's poor pitiful you. And it's the last one to go, and it's so insidious too. So watch out for all these dynamics, because again, it's not an either or. It's not black or white. There is so much gray area because it is so enmeshed and has been such a part of our environment and our training. It's impossible to not have picked up some dust, okay? So let's start operating that everybody's doing their best. That's going to be like a get out of jail free card. It's not going to come easy. It's going to take some practice. But the more that you sort of roll with that, you're going to start to see you relax. And especially when you're in traffic, just recognize other people are human beings trying to do the same thing you're doing, which is get shit done, go to work, go home, relax. Take care of somebody they love. If we start seeing ourselves as human and totally worthy of what it is we're desiring, we will automatically start seeing that in other people. So that's why the work always starts with us. It's our worthiness and our insecurity that's actually driving us into these devastating and damaging dynamics. Because until we address that fundamental crack in the foundation, we're always going to be wobbly. And that's okay. We've been practicing this for a long time, much likely more than one lifetime. So give yourself grace, but know from this point on, it doesn't have to be like that anymore. All right, but here's some tips. We got a last 10 minutes. Some tips for how to actually deal with this when you are the empath, you are aware you're dealing with somebody who's functioning as a narcissist on some level. Keep in mind that it's not about you. This might take a moment-to-moment reminder of, like a mantra, lock yourself in the bathroom. It's not me, it's you. It's not me, it's you. Because really how they're operating is telling you about their function, not yours. It's not about your worth, even if they say that. Something in them is hurting. They're not aware of it. They haven't been led to address the hurt in them either, okay? Because a lot of narcissists, it's more often than not a broken relationship with a father. I don't know why that is, but they didn't get the loving that they needed either, okay? So this is coming from a lack of love, and it's just a different way of putting it out instead of taking it on as something they did wrong, okay? But actually, narcissist empath, we're both actually kind of curious about the same thing. Did I do something wrong? There's something wrong with me. We're just kind of displaying it and expressing it in different ways. So know that it's not about you. It's about some internal hurt. Now, use your curiosity wisely. You can know this, and if they are an aware person, like an empath that's actually just functioning as a narcissist, you may be able to ask a question that might open this up, but more likely than not, use your curiosity to find out what's triggering you, what's hurting in you. What's the insecurity in you that needs some love and could get addressed there? A lot of times it's because you just gave your power away, made the other person the focal point of your life, got all curious about what their story is and why they're doing this and how could they be like this and why don't they see your point of view and blah, blah, blah. And you're in your head, out of your body, out of your life. And you're starting to get an emotional signal, this hurts. Okay, so get curious about where are you? What age are you actually functioning from right now? And how can you get back to present and parent yourself, give yourself the love that you need so you can actually heal and not have to repeat this again. Know also that you're never going to convince them. This has way too much subconscious, unconscious, emotional, trauma, past lifetime crap in it. It's not going to make sense. And a narcissist, if they're actually functioning as a narcissist in this time, and especially when it's a charge heated, both people are operating in fight or flight survival mode. This is not the time to take in new information, to examine options and possibilities. Not going to happen. So stop. Stop trying to convince them. Stop trying to feel understood or get understood by somebody who's not interested in understanding at the moment. Also examine if you're the asshole who refuses to understand and be there for you, okay? You might be your own narcissist at the same time. Isn't this crazy? You're not crazy, but it's a weird dynamic. Start to get curious about your own addiction to understanding. If this person actually changed their mind and said, oh my goodness, I totally see what you're saying, what would change? Because that's actually what you're going for. How else could you possibly deliver it? Most likely there's some other option than just sitting there arguing with them and firing back on Facebook or text message and arguing how you're going to change this, okay? Then, when you're doing this, and the more you do it, the better this is going to get. Okay, there's two and they're kind of all mixed up. Know that in the course of this, red flags have been presented. You've seen them. Now, in some of my latest training, that's called life, that's happened, some of the red flags I saw as they were happening, but because of life circumstances, I could not bail or change course in the moment. I just had to take the awareness for what it is. Red flags aren't accessories. They're not to be ignored, but they can be awareness that can be used so that what you can do is know who you're dealing with and where they're functioning from so that you don't lose your shit. Because when you do, they have the power position and they will easily hold you down and say, you're the crazy one, not me. And anybody watching is going to say, yeah, you're the crazy bitch. When it's really just because you're hurting so bad because they're lying and the truth isn't easy to see from outside, okay? So poise is your power. That's why you stop arguing with people who are crazy, because that makes you crazy. You never win. Stop trying to be understood by somebody who doesn't want to understand. You don't win. Stop trying to fix communication with somebody who's dedicated to miscommunication. You're not going to win. And it's going to frustrate you, and you're going to become a crazy, like, intense person because it's going to rattle your cage, and you've lost your poise, you've lost your power. Staying centered, being aware of the situation, and knowing sometimes there's not a thing you could say, and it sucks. It totally sucks. But this is why you have learned and are learning emotional handling tools so that you can run this through your body without it eating you alive and just feeling like lightning to where you have to explode. You can actually go for a walk, go for a run, EMDR, EFT tapping, journal in a different way to let it out. I have a feelings chair. Sometimes I just sit there. I don't even know what to do, but just let it go. And also know that this situation, even with this person, whatever, not going to last forever. You'll feel different in 5 minutes if you think different thoughts, okay? So poise is your power. Otherwise, they'll use your feelings and your reactions against you, because I don't know what it is about narcissists that they're like lawyers and they can maintain this calm. And it's actually even like, it actually gets to me and makes me more irritable. But I've learned it's just like, it's not about me. This isn't for me. What do I want to focus on? The more that we shift and pivot off of the shit that we don't like, more onto what do I have power to change? What can I create? What can I move? It starts to open up, and because you're turning your back on stuff you can't change. Okay. Let's see. You can start to see through it. Again, with red flags, the more that you expand your awareness, the more that you know yourself, the more that you are actually honest, open, allow your feelings, you're going to start to see through and see the manipulation for what it is and stop reacting to it. It's your reactions and this intensity of hurt, of love and unmet needs that's actually clouding everything. Because you get desperate and you need them to understand, and then you can't see anything else. And all of a sudden they're the only thing in your life that you can possibly see, even though you probably lived before them, even in a different lifetime, like if it's your parents. But you're going to be okay before and after them. So get back to you. You'll start to see this stuff for what it is, and be like the Matrix, to where then you can start to move and operate in a different way. And also, when dealing in a situation like this, especially when it's family, and this is what I'm learning hardcore, is there's going to have to be some resolution to be unresolved. I don't want to cut them off entirely. I want to maintain contact with my family. That's just a preference that I have. That's just a choice that I'm making. It's not for everybody, but I know for me that's something that I want. I just don't want the alienation and the working around and you tell this person that, like, that's just a level of complexity I don't want. So I just want to learn how to handle this and be able to navigate it, but it not knock me off balance. And I don't need it, and I don't believe what they're telling me about me. So to have some, like, it's actually a way of expanding your space to actually just starting to be okay with not having closure, not being black and white, knowing that sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's this way, and you can start to pick up of when it's this versus when it's that. And instead of always, oh, how are they for how I'm going to be, it's how am I going to be? How do I want to show up? I'm going to change this dynamic to some extent, but then also know I'm not going to change them. I can't, because what a lot of us do is, I'm going to get so strong and I'm going to change this dynamic, and then they'll change, and I'll do this for my daughter. I'll do this for them so they can see this. I'll do this so I'll be the light, so I'll be the... No, you do it for you, for the benefit of your life. That's the only way you can contribute, is when it's selfish and all about you. It's the weirdest thing for an empath to finally get. We are the greatest gift when we are the most, in some ways, self-centered, because we can't take away our caring. It's just who we are. But we can't actually give our caring when there's an agenda attached and we need to do it for somebody else, because that's still us seeking external validation. It's when we do it just for the pleasure of being different and the desire of fulfilling our own heart's desire and seeing how and what creative ways we can have that, and collaborating with the universe. That's when we actually start to contribute, because we take our focus off the shit we can't change, start putting in what we can, and then our eyes open up to all these people who have been waiting for us, who have been wanting to meet us. We just got so focused on what we couldn't have, because that's kind of how our reality's set up. So when you start to change that and be okay that, hey, this is how it's just going to be over here, let me just start putting more attention on what happiness is, what it feels like to be more me, how I actually show up more powerfully, and be okay with some in-between time, we're going to have a greater ability to handle all of this. How you do this to start is always, as all the programs from the Happiness Clinic are, is a future forward focus. You have to be able to answer the question, how do I want to show up? What lights me up? That is where you really are, is what lights you up. Not what problems you have, not what you need to get fixed, not who you have been, not what has happened to you, but how do I want to show up? What do I want from here forward? That's where the fun, that's where the power is. That's where every single one of the programs start. So I want you to go right after I close this to IHappenToThings.com, go to services and look up all the programs and see which one fits, and then book a call for clarity and let's talk and see about working together, because this is a messy, sticky process that has addiction and past lifetime crap involved. And I have learned and trained and read a fuck ton of stuff on this to where I can help you get the shortcuts so you don't lose yourself in this again. You really can have something different. Relationships that are fulfilling and mutually beneficial. You really can be with people and not lose yourself. It's IHappenToThings.com. Just how it's spelled. No spaces, no dashes. IHappenToThings.com. Because when you are happy, I happen to things. Things don't happen to you. You're not a victim. You're not a survivor. You are magnificent. You are a catalyst, a change maker, a light in the world. I happen to things. And that's where I'm going to close. IHappenToThings.com. Check out the services, all the programs. There's some free stuff on that page too, the badass basics I talked about last week. And then schedule a call for clarity and let's talk about how to work together. If this is a priority for your life and you want to be able to maintain your center, have calm, really be happy no matter what happens or who you're around, we've got to talk. All right? The time is now. Because growing up in 2023 to have power and fly in 2024, okay? That didn't rhyme. I had a better one before. I'll get back. It's written down somewhere. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm already looking forward to next week. And until then, you are loved. I love you. Thank you, Caroline. You are the best as well. And mwah.